Narcissists crumble when the one thing they need most is taken away without a fight. The person who stays completely still while a narcissist rages or charms begins to notice something shift in the air. That shift starts with a simple refusal to feed the constant demand for reaction. Most people answer every jab or praise because the brain treats social connection like oxygen. The narcissist counts on that automatic pull. When the response never comes, the entire system that keeps the narcissist feeling large starts to starve. Silence itself becomes the first pressure point. The brain registers social exclusion through the same pathways that register physical injury. A person who is deliberately ignored feels an urgent physical craving for closure and attention. The narcissist experiences that craving as a direct threat to the false image of superiority. Every unanswered message or calm non-reaction forces the nervous system to fixate on the quiet person. The quiet person remains unaffected. That one-sided fixation is the first concrete loss of power. The thumbnail shows a figure who refuses to engage, and the question that follows is simple. What exact move turns a narcissist's usual weapons into empty gestures? The answer begins with the refusal to play the emotional game at all. Narcissists live by extracting reactions. Anger confirms importance. Tears confirm control. Agreement confirms superiority. When none of those arrive, the extraction fails. Staying until the final moment reveals the complete sequence that collapses the narcissist's hold without a single raised voice or emotional defense. That sequence starts with the smallest deliberate acts and builds into total detachment that leaves the narcissist without leverage. The first concrete act is the gray response. When a narcissist delivers a calculated insult disguised as concern, the ordinary person feels the sting and either defends or attacks. Both replies hand over energy. The person who answers with a flat, neutral phrase or says nothing at all removes the reward. The narcissist's nervous system expects a spike of attention. That spike never arrives. The result is a visible rise in agitation that the narcissist cannot hide. This pattern repeats in every interaction. A narcissist will test with sudden praise followed by a cut. The praise is the bait. The cut is the real move. Most people chase the praise and then absorb the cut. The person who treats both the praise and the cut with the same empty face denies the cycle. The brain of the narcissist registers the missing reward as loss. Loss triggers heightened attempts to regain control. Those attempts grow louder and more obvious, while the quiet person stays the same. What the narcissist fears most in that moment is the sudden exposure of emptiness. The false self is built on the belief that every person nearby must respond. When response is denied, the false self has nowhere to land. The brain processes this as a status collapse. Status is the core currency of the narcissistic system. Without status confirmation, the internal structure begins to shake. The person who stays silent watches the shake without feeding it. The next layer appears when the narcissist tries to force a reaction through public display. In a room of other people, the narcissist will make a cutting remark designed to shame. Ordinary instinct is to explain or fight back in front of witnesses. Both choices restore the narcissist's status in the group. The person who simply continues the previous sentence or looks past the speaker as if the words never landed creates a different outcome. The group notices the lack of impact. The narcissist's status drops in real time because the expected drama never materializes. That public failure feeds a deeper fear. Narcissists fear being seen as ordinary. Ordinary is the opposite of special. Special is the only acceptable identity. When the silent person refuses to react, the room begins to treat the narcissist as background noise. Background noise is ordinary. The fear of ordinary status produces a sharp internal panic. The panic shows in louder volume or sharper attacks. Louder volume only makes the ordinariness more visible to others. The silent person never points this out. The visibility does the work alone. After the group's seen, the narcissist will often seek a private conversation to reassert dominance. The request itself is a test. Agreeing to the private talk restores the old power structure. Declining without explanation or simply stating that there is nothing to discuss leaves the narcissist holding an empty invitation. The nervous system that thrives on being the center now sits in enforced isolation. Isolation produces the next concrete fear. Narcissists require a steady stream of admiration or fear to maintain the internal image of specialness. When that stream is cut, the image begins to crack. The person who enforces the cut does so by removing access in measured steps. First, the immediate reaction disappears. Then the longer conversations end. Then, the shared spaces become neutral and brief. Each reduction is deliberate and without announcement. The narcissist experiences the reductions as sudden, unexplained scarcity. Scarcity heightens the drive to restore the supply. The drive appears as increased charm, increased rage, or increased accusations of coldness. All three are signs that the previous leverage is gone. What the narcissist fears inside the scarcity is the permanent loss of supply. Supply is not optional. Supply is the fuel that keeps the false self inflated. Without it, the false self deflates. Deflation feels like death to the system. The silent person never has to threaten or warn. The simple ongoing absence of fuel creates the fear on its own. The fear grows with every failed attempt to restart the flow. The person who watches these signs without comment gains further advantage. Every escalation from the narcissist becomes data rather than attack. The data shows the exact points of weakness. A narcissist who grows louder when ignored reveals dependence on volume. A narcissist who suddenly becomes overly kind reveals dependence on the return of positive attention. Both reveals can be noted and filed without any reply. The absence of reply keeps the asymmetry intact. Asymmetry is the core mechanism. The narcissist's entire sense of self is built on controlling the emotional state of others. When one person refuses to have an emotional state that can be controlled, the foundation shifts. The brain of the narcissist interprets the refusal as a status challenge that cannot be resolved through the usual tools. The challenge remains open. An open challenge creates ongoing internal pressure. That pressure is what the silent person never has to carry. The pressure increases when the silent person also removes future opportunities for supply. This happens through calm, permanent boundaries stated once and never defended. A boundary such as limited contact hours or refusal to discuss certain topics is delivered in flat language and then enforced by action alone. The narcissist will test the boundary repeatedly. Each failed test confirms that the old methods no longer work. Confirmation of failure is experienced as a direct hit to the constructed self-image. The constructed self-image is fragile by nature. It requires constant external confirmation. When confirmation is withheld, the image begins to demand more extreme measures. Extreme measures are easier to observe and easier to step away from. The person who steps away does so without drama. Drama itself is another form of supply. Removing drama removes the last common fuel source. At this stage, the narcissist often turns to third parties. Friends, family, or co-workers are recruited to carry messages or to apply social pressure. The ordinary response is to explain the situation to those third parties and seek alliance. Explanation hands the narrative back to the narcissist. The stronger move is to give third parties the same flat non-engagement. No defense, no counter-story, only the statement that the matter is closed. Third parties quickly lose interest when no emotional content is available. The recruitment attempt collapses under its own weight. The collapse of recruitment leaves the narcissist with fewer and fewer channels. Each closed channel increases the intensity of remaining attempts. Intensity is visible. Visibility makes the behavior less effective with every new audience. The silent person never has to point out the behavior. The behavior points itself out through its own excess. What the narcissist fears most in the failure of recruitment is the loss of the supporting cast. The false self needs an audience. When the audience stops responding, the performance has no stage. The fear of an empty stage produces frantic new attempts to rebuild the cast. Those attempts are transparent. Transparency destroys the carefully maintained image of control. The silent person simply continues the same non-response and watches the transparency spread. One deeper pattern becomes clear once several of these cycles have played out. The narcissist's power was never real force. It was only the ability to provoke a response and then claim the response as proof of importance. When the response is permanently removed, the claim has nothing left to stand on. The person who understands this no longer treats the narcissist as a powerful opponent. The narcissist becomes a predictable system that runs on attention. Systems that run on attention stop when the attention is redirected elsewhere. Redirecting attention is the practical next step. The person who once spent mental energy preparing for the next attack now spends that energy on unrelated tasks. The shift is internal and private. The narcissist continues to probe for engagement and finds none. Each failed probe further confirms the loss of influence. Confirmation accumulates. Accumulated confirmation produces visible frustration that the narcissist can no longer mask. Frustration itself becomes useful information. The person who remains silent can map the exact triggers that produce the strongest reactions. Those triggers are never used to provoke. They are simply noted so that future contact, if any is required, can avoid them entirely. Avoidance is not fear. Avoidance is the refusal to re-enter a drained system. When contact cannot be avoided, the same principle applies in compressed form. Meetings are kept short. Topics stay on external facts. Emotional language is never matched. The narcissist will attempt to expand the conversation into personal territory. Expansion is met with a return to the original fact, and then silence. The return and the silence together form a closed loop that the narcissist cannot open. Over repeated closed loops, the narcissist begins to experience the relationship as high cost and low reward. High cost and low reward is the opposite of the preferred environment. The preferred environment is low cost and high reward. When the ratio reverses, the narcissist naturally reduces investment. Reduction of investment is the practical goal. It happens without negotiation and without the silent person ever stating the goal out loud. The reduction can be accelerated by one further concrete action. Any remaining shared resources or obligations are handled through written records only. Spoken agreements are converted to short written notes that require no reply beyond confirmation of receipt. Written form removes the tone and facial cues that narcissists use to manipulate. Without those cues, the interaction becomes pure information transfer. Pure information transfer carries no emotional charge. Without charge, the narcissist has nothing to amplify. This sequence of moves produces a measurable change in the balance of power. The narcissist, who once dictated the emotional climate of every room, now finds that climate controlled by the quietest person present. Control has inverted. The inversion is permanent as long as the silent pattern continues. A further layer appears when the silent person begins to observe the narcissist's relationships with others. Patterns of idealization followed by devaluation become obvious. The observation itself is detached. No attempt is made to warn others or to intervene. Intervention would reintroduce emotional content. Detached observation simply confirms that the system operates the same way with every target. Confirmation removes any remaining doubt that the behavior is personal. When the behavior is no longer experienced as personal, the last internal hook disappears. The disappearance of the internal hook is the point at which true power stabilizes. The silent person no longer carries residual tension after interactions. The body remains calm because the nervous system is no longer braced for the next extraction attempt. Calm is visible. Visible calm further frustrates the narcissist, who relies on visible disturbance as proof of impact. What the narcissist fears in the face of that calm is the complete absence of impact. Impact is how the false self measures existence. Without impact, the false self has no evidence that it still holds weight. The fear of weightlessness produces one last surge of either extreme charm or extreme attack. Both are met with the same empty response. The surge fails. Failure at this stage removes the final illusion that any tool still works. At this stage, many people make the error of explaining the method to the narcissist or to mutual contacts. Explanation reopens the channel. The stronger continuation is to offer no explanation of any kind. The absence of explanation forces the narcissist to generate private theories. Private theories are rarely flattering and rarely accurate. Inaccuracy increases internal confusion. Confusion is another form of lost control. Lost control compounds when the silent person also stops seeking any form of closure. Narcissists often leave interactions unfinished in order to keep the other person thinking about them. The person who refuses to chase unfinished business denies that final thread of attention. The unfinished business remains unfinished. The narcissist is left holding it alone. Holding unfinished business alone produces a specific internal state. The brain prefers resolution. When resolution is permanently unavailable, the open loop continues to consume mental resources. Those resources are no longer available for new targets or for maintaining the false self. The false self begins to require more external input at the exact moment when external input is hardest to obtain. The final practical step is the complete withdrawal of any remaining shared future. Shared plans, shared spaces, and shared expectations are allowed to end through simple non-participation. No announcement of ending is required. Non-participation is sufficient. The narcissist will interpret the ending as rejection and will attempt one last surge of either charm or attack. The surge is met with the same empty response that has been used throughout. The surge fails. Failure at the final attempt removes the last illusion of influence. What remains is a clear structural reality. The narcissist's power depended entirely on the willingness of others to provide reaction. When that willingness is removed and never restored, the power has nowhere left to attach. The person who removed it did so without raising volume, without emotional defense, and without ever naming the strategy. The result is a permanent shift in which the former source of disruption becomes an object that can be observed from a distance, without cost. The deeper pattern that emerges after all these steps is the recognition that every narcissistic demand is a request for proof of importance. Proof was once given automatically through attention. When proof is withheld, the demand loses its force. The person who understands the request for what it is never again mistakes the demand for genuine power. That understanding is the quiet end state. No celebration, no declaration of victory, only the continued practice of non-reaction that keeps the balance inverted. The narcissist continues to operate according to the same fixed needs. Those needs are simply no longer met by the person who once met them. The system runs out of fuel in one specific direction and must seek it elsewhere. The silent person is no longer part of the search. The final fear that settles into the narcissist is the fear of permanent irrelevance. Irrelevance is the complete opposite of the special status the false self requires. When every channel of attention has been closed and stays closed, irrelevance becomes the new condition. The brain of the narcissist registers permanent irrelevance as a form of social death. Social death produces a lasting internal contraction. The contraction is visible in reduced attempts, reduced volume, and reduced presence. The silent person never has to force that outcome. The outcome arrives through the steady removal of every form of reaction. The power that once flowed toward the narcissist now remains with the person who refused to give it away.